Why is it important to get language right? I'm claiming that when we teach language, it's absolutely important that we get language right. So why is it important to get language right when we teach? And I'm going to suggest that the understanding of the process of language curricularization matters, especially for dual language programs that enroll only minoritized students, but also for two-way programs that bring two groups of very different students together, right? And right now we're very concerned with the gentrification of bilingual education, trying to sort out what does that mean for students that are really much more fragile? What does this mean for equity? So getting language rights, I'm going to argue, matters a great deal because we're engaged in teaching language in all of those contexts. So just for today, you don't have to do it for a long time. In order to make clear why language is not an ordinary school subject that can be curricularized easily or successful, I want you to conceptualize language as a type of complex, skilled performance. And I'm going to say that it could be any of these things that I suggested before. It could be all of the above, but it might also be a complex, skilled performance. And I want you to focus on this for a moment. What is a complex skilled performance? So one kind of skilled performance is playing a musical instrument. Right? That involves a lot of skill, right? As does developing superior abilities in playing a particular sport. Notice that both of these activities could be initiated in school settings and involve instruction. But instruction is very different from that implemented in the teaching of traditional academic disciplines, like mathematics, or social studies, or English language arts. If you happen to be teaching band in a school, okay, you don't see yourself really engaged in teaching a lot of music theory because you want the kids to be able to play whatever the march is at the end of the school year, right? And if you happen to be the PE teacher and you want them all to play a particular sport, okay, you don't launch into the history of the sport necessarily, right? So you're going for performance in this particular situation. And it's different than mathematics. Mathematics and social studies, that is a completely different thing, right? So, in teaching students to play an instrument, for example, you might actually teach some skills and sub-skills. For example, if you're teaching flute, you might want to show where the lip plate is and where you put your lips on that flute plate. And you might want to hold and balance an instrument and let kids figure that out, and how to breathe in tongue and produce clear notes. But the interesting thing is we know that learners need practice in order to engage in performance, right? But rehearsal and performance typically involves the playing of a musical piece which is then rehearsed repeatedly until the level of the age-appropriate quality is reached, right? You're just going to play one piece and you memorized it, and maybe the whole band will have a repertoire of 5 pieces that they play at the end of the year. So, with rare exceptions, will they ever have to participate, okay, in improvising or interacting with other musicians, right? The only time that you, as an instrument player, no matter what the instrument, improvise as opposed to play and memorize, okay, a performance is if you're part of a jazz ensemble, right? And jazz artists are wonderful because they improvise in rhythm, right? But the skilled performance is a practice skilled performance, but you can anticipate what's going to come up. Teaching language might seem similar. It might seem that we can teach vocabulary and sentence frames and dialogues and be asked to rehearse them with others in class. But unlike playing a musical piece, language is primarily interactive, right? So rehearsing the specifics and producing a memorized dialogue with a partner is not going to prepare students for the unpredictability of the interactivity with speakers of the target language. In my case, I studied French for many years, and at one point with one trip to France, and I wanted to know if they had the change in dollars. I was paying in francs and I wanted dollars, and I said, "Avez-vous la monnaie en dollars?" And they said, blah, 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 blah. I did not understand what they said. That had not been the other part of the dialogue that I had memorized in the classroom, right? So you can't anticipate what people are going to say well enough that you can teach both sides of the dialogue. So the point here is skilled performance. Language is a skilled performance. It's similar in some ways to playing music, but not identical to it. So perhaps developing language skills is much more similar to developing expertise in playing a sport. I'm a basketball fan. These are the Michigan Wolverines. I went to give a talk at the University of Michigan not too long ago, and I talked about similar things, so I was treated with this wonderful picture of the Wolverines in action. So if you're a basketball fan the way I am, and I'm actually an avid Warrior fan, and so I follow basketball very closely, and what I note that if you analyze a basketball game, you see the complexity of the game. We could actually pull out a grammar and do diagrams of what happened in a basketball game. And you can see the basic skills that underlie the play, such as dribbling and passing and shooting and rebounding. But what we do know is that if you're a coach young, new players, you can't be discouraged by the complexity. Again, we could do very elaborate diagrams, and people do very elaborate diagrams of the moves in a basketball play. But that's not what you're going to teach the young learners, right? Two things are essential, right? And the two things that are essential are you need to develop your players' skills, and you need to give them the opportunity to play the game. The moral of the story here is you need to give them the opportunity to play the game. Often, when you coach sports and you have young girls playing, whether it's soccer or basketball, you often push them to play with the boys. And you know why you push them to play with the boys? Because you're actually assuming that the more skilled players may actually be the boys. One of my granddaughters became a very good soccer player because she played with boys. They had a co-ed team one year, and it did wonders for her soccer game. She would not have acquired that proficiency of playing in that way if she had not played with the right skilled players. So, playing the game is essential to the development of lasting expertise. Dribbling by yourself will only get you so far in basketball. And similarly, using memorized expressions will only get you so far in language classrooms. And young players and young learners need both fundamental moves and the opportunity to play the game. You see where I'm going here, I hope. So an example of playing the game. We got some money from NSF to fund a project that we called the Stanford Integrated Science and Language Project. And if you're interested in it, this is the website, and you'll get a copy of this PowerPoint. And if you go up to our website, you'll actually see all of our theoretical framework. You'll actually see lots of video, because this was implemented in a school in Oakland and in schools in Alum Rock that are part of the San Jose area. And so we have many, you have to sign on because there's a lot of student video, but nevertheless, it's available to you.